FSM Football Sunday live on your computer, on your phone, on your tablet, wherever you may be. We're glad that you guys are a part of this experience. Ben Heisler here. I'm the Director of Media Operations for Fantasy Sports Markets, and with me, as always, my longtime friend. He is the outstanding host of Wake Up Fantasy Sports on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. He is also an incredible contributor and analyst for Fantasy Alarm. He's my guy. He's Justin Fensterman, and he's fired up on a Sunday morning.
I am, because flying hasn't been one of my favorite things for the last few years, and now add another reason, as you heard potentially in the promo that you guys watched, is that Melvin Gordon's hammy tightened up on the flight to London. So now I don't like London, and I don't like flying, so add those to the list.
Wait a minute, you're going to go ahead and just throw London? There's a lot of good things to like about London.
London's fault, okay? This is all, like, his hamstring tightened up like a figure in Madame Tussauds Wax Museum then. Like this guy now lost me probably 15 to 20 points because of the flight.
That's true. But you had an opportunity to pick up Austin Eckler. Maybe he's a great fantasy start for you guys if you got in early on the daily side over at Fantasy Sports Markets. By the way, speaking of Fantasy Sports Markets, promo code NFL18, $5 on us when you go to fantasysportsmarkets.com and you register your team. Just type in that promo code. You get $5. You can enter it in any of our contests. There are a boatload still open. There's still some overlay today. So go ahead and get involved before the contests do fill up. And we'll let you know about this throughout the entirety of the show. All right, so Fensty, before we get some of the questions coming in, there's a lot to discuss, particularly on the injury side. We'll get to that in just a little bit, but Friday afternoon, I don't know where you were. I think you might have been in the middle of a show.
I was.
But I got an alert saying that Carlos Hyde had been traded from the Cleveland Brownies. He goes out to Jacksonville in what appears to be a pretty strange running situation because nobody knows the health status of Leonard Fournette. TJ Yeldon had been a back-end running back one throughout the course of this season. And so now we're left with a situation in Jacksonville where they might have three really good running backs there, depending on Fournette's health. And for Cleveland, all of a sudden the opportunities for Nick Chubb and Duke Johnson just went sky high. So let's start with your take on the trade.
I mean, to happen on a Friday afternoon before game day is devastating to fantasy players, because going into it and thinking about all the coverage leading up to it, being that they had that matchup, the Browns against the Bucks, you thought Carlos Hyde was easily locked in for a couple of touchdowns, and now you're in a situation where I'm seeing reports that there is a chance, saying there's a chance, that Carlos Hyde could actually play, but I don't see it happening. I personally don't see it happening. I don't know how he can pick up the offense in 2 days, but why am I seeing reports, Ben, that if there's a chance that he could make his debut? I mean, that to me is a scary situation. So you go from a situation where he was locked into 2 touchdowns, in my opinion, with a great matchup, to now you're going through the waiver wire where Nick Chubb probably wasn't there in a lot of 10 or 12 team leagues by that point. And you're in a situation now when Leonard Fournette comes back. I'm a Fournette owner in a couple of leagues, and wow, that's my first-round pick now in a major timeshare. Yep. Yeldon wasn't as much of a threat then, so you got Yeldon, who's still looking good today. But now with Fournette now sitting there, who are they going to prioritize? The unhealthy Leonard Fournette or the new flashy back that they got in Carlos Hyde?
Yeah, there's going to be a conundrum there. The situation from a fantasy standpoint looks so much better in Cleveland than it does for Jacksonville. And I had basically said all year that I just didn't want anything to do with Fournette. I just felt like the injuries were going to be costly. I wasn't sure necessarily of how reliable he could be. And so that bothered me a little bit. And so I just felt like, okay, maybe I can fade him, knowing that, yeah, if he does end up playing, I could, eat the chalk a couple times in daily. But yeah, the reality of the situation, at least for Cleveland right now, is I think this works out really well for both of their running backs. Think about the usage rate for Carlos Hyde in the first 4 weeks of the season. It was one of the best in the NFL. He was leading the NFL in rushing attempts. He was leading the NFL in rushing touchdowns. Was he getting a whole lot of catches in the backfield? No, but they still have Duke Johnson. In the last couple weeks, you've started to see him emerge a little bit more. Now with Chubb, I don't know if they necessarily rely on him as a pass-catching back. I think they use him in that same way that they were using Carlos Hyde early. This is something that I feel is a lock for at least 15 carries a game. And I think on third down situations, they want to get the ball back in Duke Johnson's hands. He's electric in space. He's really good in the backfield at catching passes. That becomes another receiver weapon for them on a team that could probably use another receiver or two. So I really think this benefits both sides for Cleveland.
You know, you mentioned Duke Johnson. Everyone's all over Nick Chubb and stuff like that. I get it. Big game, big Chubb. I get the whole innuendo right there. But with Duke Johnson, 2 of the last 3 weeks, I mean, you're seeing 4 receptions each, especially 73 yards in the air for Duke Johnson. So don't sleep on Duke Johnson now. I mean, he's come out in the last couple of weeks complaining that he's not getting enough love in this offense.
Right.
Well, Merry Christmas to you, Duke, because now you have a chance, especially in that receiving game. And with Antonio Callaway, if there is annoyed with Antonio Callaway with the drops, especially at having a big touchdown drop last week, went right through his hands, then Duke Johnson's going to be used more in the short passing game.
Here's something that I think, and I see some questions coming in on Periscope, on YouTube Live, on Facebook Live. We will get to all of your questions. That's part of the reason that we are here, is to answer your lineup questions, get you fully prepared for Week 7, make sure that your team is prepared and ready to go, whether you're playing daily on fantasy sports markets, whether it's season-long, wherever. We're here for you guys. We'll get to your questions coming up in just a second. Nick Chubb is going to be the popular value play, the chalk value play on the daily sites this week. But I will tell you this, man, like with how well you can throw against Tampa Bay, and I know that they made a change at defensive coordinator. Mike Smith is out, okay? The idea that you can go in and use Duke Johnson with like maybe 3% ownership today, man, that is that's a good GPP play. And I almost like it better than Chubb. Even though Chubb's value is so good and you know that the volume's going to be there, Cleveland's going to throw in this game because you know Tampa's going to put up some points. I think Duke Johnson might be one of the best value GPP plays on the day.
It doesn't get much better than that, Ben. And when you're thinking from an ownership standpoint when it comes to DFS, you're absolutely right. Everybody and their mother are all over Chubb at this point. This is never going to get old.
Oh, man, why'd you have to bring in a mother and Chubb?
I don't. You know what? Because it's true. It's very true. So with Duke Johnson, though, you're right from an ownership standpoint.
We all like to come from somewhere.
Yes, exactly. So, but now let me ask you this: let's go and continue with the Browns' options.
Yeah.
Someone else that I don't think is going to have a lot of ownership, and that's because of the dropsies, Antonio Callaway. Mm-hmm. Now somebody else who's very low in value that you compare when you're going stars and scrubs, especially. That's someone because let's face it, we got to keep attacking the Bucs in the air, especially like you mentioned. So why not put Antonio Callaway in a few of your lineups?
Yeah, I don't mind the Antonio Callaway. All you need is one large, big touchdown chunk play, and he pays off his value. I probably wouldn't play him at a site like Fantasy Sports Markets. I think there's better options there. On the salary side, I think he's certainly in play. Before we get to the questions, is there any major injury news that's coming out that we need to address?
Well, let's talk about the Patriots, who are always playing tricks on us fantasy players, but Rob Gronkowski dealing with a few injuries. He is out. He's going to be out, so make sure you get him out of your lineups. Meanwhile, some of the other options, Josh Gordon, Sony Michel, Julian Edelman, all were on the injury report, all expected to play, but that's not a lock, so you make sure you're keeping track of those lineups. A lot of injuries there. Adrian Peterson expected to play. However, for the Redskins, Chris Thompson not expected to play. So that makes things interesting because right now with the Redskins, they have a lot of banged-up receivers. I mean, we've seen Crowder in and out. Paul Richardson has been banged up. I mean, when Vernon Davis is your healthiest skill position player, you know the world's been turned upside down. So you've got that to look at as well. Something I mentioned as well to you before, Ben, is that I'm seeing, according to Ian Rappaport, so take it with a grain of salt right there because it is Ian Rappaport, Carlos Hyde has, quote, a chance to play in Week 7. What are you going to do about that? Let's say he's active, Ben. Do you start this guy 2 days into a new team?
I don't think you can.
I don't think you can either, even in bye weeks. And I know it's desperation time, but this is a situation where how many carries can he get? Can you really pick up that offense in 2 days?
Right. You really can't. No, not at this point. And maybe there's an opportunity there, but I'm certainly not relying on it. All right, let's get to your guys' questions, unless there's anything else that I missed.
Yep, just two more things quickly. Our guy Mohamed Sanu expected to play, dealing with a hip injury. Allen Robinson also expected to play, a big bye week guy. especially if you're really short on receivers. Groin injury for him, but expected to play as well. So that and Pierre Garçon as well. I mean, we talk about C.J. Beathard. Can we trust this guy? Pierre Garçon expected to play as well versus the Rams.
All right, I see questions coming in from a lot of different people so far. It's off to a great start. Chauncey, I see you. Sam on Facebook Live. My guy Arturo. Aaron. What's going on, Aaron? And then our guy Jeremy on Facebook Live as well. But let's get to PD Dubs 101. I'm going to go ahead and throw his question up on the screen here. It says, full point PPR, I picked up Duke Johnson and Jalen Richard. I have Carlos Hyde. I had Marshawn Lynch. How did I do with Joe Mixon and Zeke Elliott as my running back one? Well, I think obviously, picking up Duke Johnson, we talked about him just a few minutes ago, that he's in such an ideal spot now to get the type of volume that he got last year. The Browns aren't dumb. I mean, maybe the coaching staff needs to, sharpen their tools a little bit every so often, but they know that they have some weapons on the offensive side of the ball. John Dorsey's no dummy, and he's drafted incredibly well, and he understands personnel. So I think especially now with Duke Johnson and Jalen Richard, if you're in a PPR league, you're sitting really pretty right here.
Right. But also make sure as well, Doug Martin, he had some flashes of impressiveness in preseason. So because of that, he's still there. So you also have to think, I'm more of a Doug Martin guy than Jalen Richard at this point, Ben. I don't know where you stand on that, and I know it doesn't impact the DFS slate this week, but this is something we're going to have to think about because Marshawn Lynch, on Monday, we could get a report that he's going to the IR and the season's over for him.
Right. And again, Richard is on a bye this week, so don't play him. But obviously, I think Duke Johnson is fully in play. So PD Dubs, nicely done. I think you're in a really good spot moving forward. This is from Chauncey, 7979 on Periscope. Do you go with Chris Hogan or Josh Gordon today?
Wow.
So really quickly, I think they're both risky plays. Chicago's defense, I know they got lit up by Miami, but I think a lot of the final numbers kind of skew your frame of reference a little bit. Two of those big plays were those screen passes to Albert Wilson that just cut him open in the middle of the field. I think if you're talking about pure overall talent, Josh Gordon, especially with no Gronkowski, is certainly in play. But what do you think between Josh Gordon and Chris Hogan? Who are you more likely to rely on against the Bears?
In this type of situation, especially with no Gronk, I'm going to rely on the player that I think is going to get the big play, that if there is going to be a 60-yard touchdown reception, that's Josh Gordon. With Chris Hogan, I'm expecting more on the reception side, but Josh Gordon getting, I believe, 9 targets in previous matchups. So because of that, I'm fine with Josh Gordon getting a little bit more involved. I've read reports that they want to get Josh Gordon more involved in this offense. And with Chris Hogan, it's just I just in general don't have as much confidence on this guy until I start seeing him actually get it done. He's been sitting there on my benches, so I'm going to go Josh Gordon. What about you, Ben?
I'm going to go Josh Gordon as well. I think the upside is greater. I was somebody that initially when they signed Josh Gordon that it would be more beneficial to somebody like Chris Hogan. Remember, Chris Hogan was somebody that was probably top 15, top 20 as far as fantasy receivers taken. Now, again, that all changed with Rob Gronkowski being fully healthy, Julian Edelman coming back after the 4-game suspension, and the trade for Josh Gordon. So that's obviously killed Chris Hogan's value. And he'll still get into the end zone. Brady will still target him a handful of times, but they're incorporating Josh Gordon more and more into the offense as targets continue to go up week in and week out. So
and not Hogan's, Ben. And not Hogan's. I mean, look at the last few weeks, 3 of the last 4 weeks I'm seeing right here. 4 targets, that's it for the guy?
Right.
Come on.
Yeah, I think Josh Gordon is absolutely the better play for this week. So, Chauncey, good luck. Thanks so much for sending in your question on today's show. Sam from Facebook, Nick Chubb or Kerryon Johnson today in a half-point PPR? Oh, Sam, I am thrilled that you brought up this conundrum because I got it earlier today from boss man Blake, and I think the answer is very easy today. So, Fensty, before I give my answer, I want to hear yours.
I really want to go with Kerryon Johnson here. I do. I think he's in a very strong spot. But right now, all signs are pointing to the Browns playing it safe with their run game. I know we've been talking about Duke Johnson, but Nick Chubb, how do you not go with him at this point? Especially with seeing more production over the last few weeks, even with Hyde there. I may have to, and especially with LeGarrette Blount, we've seen him score a couple of times in games. I may have to go with Nick Chubb there.
I'll tell you
That's
what.
a tougher decision.
It is tough. I'm going Kerryon Johnson, and I think the reason is no Theo Riddick. Theo Riddick opens up anywhere between 6 to 8 targets in the passing game for Detroit Lions running backs, theoretically, because that's what Theo Riddick averages per game. Going up against Miami, over the last 2 weeks, they've been exploited with pass-catching running backs. And so, especially if Theo Riddick isn't even an option, like, are you worried that LeGarrette Blount could vulture a touchdown? Yeah, you always have to be concerned about that. But I think you can run on Miami. I think you can use running backs that are explosive in the backfield that can catch passes against Miami. And I still think Duke Johnson's going to be an integral part of the passing game today for Cleveland. Chubb is going to get volume. If you want a safe, reliable pick that's going to get volume and probably the red zone targets and opportunities, then yeah, Nick Chubb's your guy. I think upside, though, Kerryon Johnson has it more so than him.
You know what? I'm flip-flopping on this one.
Oh,
I'm looking more into it. I'm flip-flopping.
Yes.
You know what? I'm going to the Benny Heis side. And one thing that you said that really sticks out is, giving up, like I'm doing the math in my head, over 6 catches per game to these running backs.
Right.
And they like to throw as well, the Lions. So that'll be very interesting. I'm going to change my mind here, and I'm going to go and I'm going to tackle Miami and go Kerryon Johnson with you.
Love it. All right, I see.
You convinced me, Ben. See, we all can still learn something from everything.
This is what we do.
We're just like you.
Right, exactly. You this is why you talk it out. Like, fantasy, like this show, Fensty, in addition to just being, like, really fun, because you and I have worked together forever and it's awesome, this is therapy, man. Like, we're talking our issues through. We're trying to figure out a lot of these questions, like, they're plays that we're trying to figure out as well. So this is group therapy. Yeah. All right, I see questions from Jeremy, from Cali Trees 3 on Periscope, Corey on YouTube, and then I see a couple coming in as well, so we will get to all of them. There's 2 actually from Arturo, so let's get to those real quick. Looks like to be, it doesn't say if it's a PPR league or not. Chester Rogers or Kiki Kuti from Arturo. So T.Y. Hilton's set to play, as far as I understand.
Right.
That puts Chester Rogers' value pretty down.
But Ben, Ryan Grant is out. Remember that.
That's true. Ryan Grant is out. And Kuti probably has the more difficult matchup on the road at Jacksonville, but he also lines up in the slot where that's one of the few places that you can attack Jacksonville. And what I'm worried about that game from the Houston perspective. I think Jacksonville is by far and away the best defense on the slate today. So between Rodgers and a better matchup, but with T.Y. Hilton back, or Kuti, who are you going with this week?
I am actually going to go with Chester Rogers here, and that's because with T.Y. Hilton back, he's going to draw the top coverage. This actually is a theory I have for Eric Ebron. Now, Buffalo not bad against tight ends. I'm still thinking Eric Ebron hits the end zone, and I'm still thinking that Chester Rogers gets a ton of targets, maybe not 10, but I'm like he did last week, but I'm thinking that he's still getting at least 8 in this matchup. So because Ryan Grant is out, I'm willing to roll with him one more week.
That's perfectly fair. I think sort of the safety play is probably Rodgers because not only Grant being out, Andrew Luck, we've talked about this the last couple weeks, he's on pace to set the NFL record in passing attempts on the season, which is remarkable coming off like super serious shoulder surgery, but you know, Colts football. So Rodgers is probably the safer play. I think Kuti with his speed in the middle of the field has a chance to go deep for a touchdown. Watson will complete a couple of those long throws throughout the course of this game. He's going to have to be throwing a lot, playing from behind most likely. So I think the safer play in this game is Rodgers, but Kuti may be more the high risk, high reward play. Good
question, though. Let me tell you, that's a situation because with Will Fuller, I mean, all of a sudden the production drop-off we've seen in the last matchup or two for him, I mean, Cootie's definitely made an impact on that more.
One more from Arturo. It's a quarterback toss-up between Jameis Winston and Mitch Trubisky. Winston, by far and away, I think, has the better matchup. I know that you can throw on New England, and I think actually Trubisky could have a good game today. I think especially just... The Bears have a tendency to bounce back, and I think they're going to play New England well. I don't know if they'll win. Right. But I think initially I saw this and I was like, oh, it's clearly Winston. But Trubisky's going to put up some points, and he always has a nice floor with his ability to run. Yeah, he's one of the better running quarterbacks in the NFL this year, and I think people don't give him enough credit. But I'm still going Jameis Winston because everything involving him is involved in the passing game, and he's almost a lock for 300-plus and a couple touchdowns each week.
I will say this, and this is again how we can use this question to teach everybody else. In this situation, you're going to go Jameis Winston here in that great matchup against Cleveland. But if you're looking for a bye-week fill-in quarterback at this point, then you go with Mitch Trubisky. He's on your waiver wire.
Yes.
I'm telling you, he will be there. And like last week, I thought Blake Bortles would be a good bye-week fill-in, and that didn't really work out as much as I think anyone thought it would have. In this situation, being that you could throw on the Patriots, Mitch Trubisky is a good bye-week fill-in option.
Yeah,
so check your waiver wires now.
Yeah, if you need him, and again, there's a lot of good quarterbacks that are on bye this week. Our buddy Jeremy, always weighing in on Facebook. He's one of our favorites here. A lot of value at quarterback and wide receiver for daily this week. So it says he thinks the move is to load up on stud running backs and then go with Zach Ertz in a daily play. So let's talk a little DFS strategy for today. In the lineups that I have made, Todd Gurley is everywhere. I got a lot of Nick Chubb sprinkled in with a little bit of Duke Johnson and Kerryon Johnson. And then, again, Zeke Elliott going to be probably the other favorite play of the day. But I also think you can get a lot of value from LaShawn McCoy against Indianapolis today. I think Latavius Murray with being the only back from Minnesota in play against the Jets. Do you like that strategy this week in DFS to just load up on the stud running backs, find value at quarterback and wide receiver, and then try and find a way to include Zach Ertz?
I don't mind that at all. Give Christian McCaffrey a look as well in that grouping, Ben.
Yeah, well, he's not going to run well because Philadelphia's they're monsters at stopping the run, but he will be involved in the passing game.
Right.
I kind of look at Cam Newton, and I was having a conversation with Elliot Christ over at the Quan Edge, one of the better DFS analysts in the country, and we were talking about the idea of Cam Newton being a GPP flyer for this week. Eagles are a good defense, but they have been susceptible against the pass, and Cam, when he has protection, is actually one of the better quarterbacks in the league. So I think if Carolina can keep him upright, Carolina can put up some points on the road at Philadelphia today. And his response was, yeah, every week Cam Newton is a good GPP flyer, just because of his rushing upside, his ability to score touchdowns as a ball carrier. But do you think he's got a good matchup this week?
Yes, and I say let's also attack the Eagles' corners because Devin Funchess, I'm thinking, is in for a big week and not the highest priced receiver out there. So again, you're looking for a little bit of balance. I love Devin Funchess. I feel like this guy is the most underappreciated receiver this season.
Really?
Nobody ever talks about him, Ben. No one ever talks about Devin Funchess. I mean, you're talking about a guy that is getting targeted a lot. He's getting multiple receptions. He's scored now 2 in the last 3 weeks. He's 5,300 on DraftKings. And again, I want to attack this Eagles secondary. Why not go after Devin Funchess?
I almost like Greg Olsen maybe a tad bit more in the middle of the field because every time Olsen comes back, the target share for Funchess and McCaffrey tend to go down.
True, but they're bringing him back slowly, too, and this is just week 2. We saw them be very controlled with Olsen in week 1 of the return. I'm thinking that they're still going to be very conservative with how they use Greg Olsen.
All right, let's get a Periscope question in from Cali Trees 3. Standard League, 12-man league between TJ Yeldon or Marlon Mack today. The problem is that I really like both of these running backs had it be PPR.
Right.
The fact that it's a standard league, do you go with Marlon Mack because of the touchdown upside in the running game?
I think you have to. I mean, we saw the impact he made back last week against the Jets. I mean, Nyheim Hines, you have to put him on a milk carton at this point because of what Marlon Mack did.
Yeah, that's
and the problem with TJ Yeldon, so at this time we're going to have to say Marlon Mack. However, let me say this. TJ Yeldon right now, if Carlos Hyde does end up playing, that's going to impact his value for today, Ben. I'm telling you, it's going to screw him up.
Do we really think that might just be a threat? Like, I can't. If he comes in, how many carries realistically do you think he gets? I mean,
maybe 8 if he's ready to go. It's like, I'm literally watching for news updates on this right now.
Right.
Because it's a very scary situation. Overall, if this were PPR, I'd say go for it with Yeldon anyway, but in standard, who I think has the more touchdown upside, I think that's Marlon Mack.
Yeah, and again, Buffalo's a decent defense. I think they're actually a nice value play, I think, this week, going up against the Colts. Because of how often Luck throws, he's going to take hits. He threw 3 interceptions a week ago. So
Right.
that can pick up some fantasy points. Buffalo, I think, how many times they sacked Watson last week? Like 8?
Yeah, it was big. It was big. They could get it done. I mean, we've seen them stop even teams like Minnesota. So Buffalo can be a bit stingy. And what you would think would be a good matchup for the opposition, and then Buffalo comes through. Ever since that Vikings game, I've always kept an eye on them, especially from the defensive effort on the waiver wire that we're seeing if you need a pickup there.
Yeah, it's tough because there's no Fournette, and I know that there's been reports that Hyde is going to play. I just have a hard time believing it.
Right.
So I guess if it were me, and I'm slightly changing my opinion here, I still think I'd go Yeldon just because he's the feature back. I know Mac did well, but he only got about 13 carries last week.
Right.
And the Colts are going to throw, so I think the safer play is probably Yeldon if I had to try. So we're going to disagree on that, Cali Trees, but I think both of them are certainly in play. And wishing you good luck. From Corey on the YouTube stream, let's go ahead and throw his question up on the chat. There it is. Okay. With Dalvin Cook out, should I consider playing Latavius Murray over Alvin Kamara in a half-point PPR? I would say no, because Alvin Kamara is awesome. I didn't try to find a way to get both of them in, though. Like, I don't know who else you can take out, but I really like them both this week.
Yeah, if you have Kamara, you're starting Kamara. I see where he's going, and I know I know with Mark Ingram back, it is a bit of a threat onto him with Murray, but I can't, again, you have Alvin Kamara, you got to start Alvin Kamara in that situation. That's why you paid for him.
Exactly. Yeah, I think Kamara is the play.
You're not going to bench Todd Gurley in the worst matchup of the year, and I get that Mark Ingram is there, but they proved last year that they could both be productive even when playing side by side. So if you paid for Kamara knowing that and knowing that you were going to have Mark Ingram back after week 4, you're still going to start Kamara.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. Let's go to Periscope. MCDKC, flex spot, half-point PPR. Another question about Latavius Murray. Do you play him or T.Y. Hilton today?
Man, that's also a tough one here. With T.Y. Hilton, still, I mean, I know he's back, but I know he's not 100%.
Right.
And I know it's a very risky start. You may want to be safe here and go Latavius Murray.
It's crazy to think about, right? Like the idea of Luck throwing as much as he is and using the volume that T.Y. Hilton wouldn't be the play, considering he was coming in as a top 10 wide receiver in your drafts this year. But Minnesota's got a really good matchup today. I know the Jets have been playing well. Last couple games, they've been big winners at home. That's 3 in a row for the Jets at home, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
So, but with Murray, like you saw last week, that they don't mind giving him the ball in volume. If you expect Minnesota to win, you expect game script to be in their favor. I think you're going to see a lot of second half Latavius Murray today, and I think he's the safer play, and that's okay.
Yep, I agree with that too. Again, with Hilton seeing top coverage and a little bit banged up, again, we were talking about Chester Rogers. I'm an Ebron believer today that he'll get back in the end zone. Ebron just not getting a touchdown in just 1 week this year. So I'm thinking that both of those guys are better matchups because Hilton is essentially the lightning rod and is going to get the most focus, even not 100%.
By the way, we noticed from a couple of people last week that either their questions didn't get read or maybe we missed them. That's theoretically very possible. There's a lot of questions that come in. We try to get to all of them. So if you notice, like it's been about 5-10 minutes or so, we haven't got to your question, go ahead and just type it in again, and we will do our best to make sure that we get to it. Sometimes all the questions don't go through either. It's a live stream. It's coming in from all sorts of different places. So please go ahead and just resubmit your question. That's never a problem. Also, just another reminder, with both myself and Fensty, here for Fantasy Sports Markets on FSM Football Sunday. If you guys go to fantasysportsmarkets.com, for those of you guys that are new to the show, new to the site, we are a non-salary cap daily fantasy sports site. So if you want to do an entire team of Todd Gurley and Alvin Kamara and Antonio Brown and DeAndre Hopkins, you can't afford those guys on the salary sites. But at FSM, you can play whoever you want to play as long as they fit the position. So it's a lot easier. It's a lot faster. I made a video yesterday, Fensty, making a college football top 25 lineup because FSM offers college football contests. I made it in 2 minutes. You fly, yeah, that's it? Fly through it. Yeah, I mean,
because you're not making those lineup decisions. You could build an all-star team.
Exactly. And the thing is that even if you want to go contrarian a couple spots, you can go sort of cash and standard and chalk for a lot of these different plays. But man, like in this situation today, like Jarvis Landry's got a great opportunity today against Tampa Bay, right? Jarvis Landry is going to be considered a contrarian play on fantasy sports markets because he's not Antonio Brown, because he's not DeAndre Hopkins, because he's not one of the elite level wide receivers. And so if you know that there's a matchup that's going to really entice you and excite you today, you can play him on FSM at low ownership. And there's a lot of good prizes up for grabs, including a chance to win over $200,000 in our NFL contest this week. So again, promo code NFL18 over at fantasysportsmarkets.com. It's $5 on us. It's a chance for you guys to try out the site and get a chance to see what it's like to play DFS without the salary caps. So again, promo code NFL18 as we continue to answer your questions here on the show. All right, let's go to Zach on Facebook Live. Zach wants to know Adrian Peterson or Matt Breida today. I'm not sure whether or not it's a PPR league or not. Normally in these situations, Fensty, I tend to just say, all right, like let's sort of balance in the middle, just assume it's half-point PPR.
Right.
So we talked about Adrian Peterson, the fact that he's the only running back that's pretty much healthy for Washington. You might see a sprinkle of Capri Bibbs in there as well. I actually think Peterson's probably the better play. Breida's a question mark as well, even though I think San Francisco's going to have to throw a ton, and they'll use Breida occasionally in the passing game. The more reliable option this week is Adrian Peterson, purely based on the volume. And Dallas sort of sets up the game script really well too, right? Because they're one of the slowest offenses in the country. They like to run and pound the ball with Zeke Elliott. I think on the other side, that's what Washington's going to have to do today, because Dallas's defense is no slouch.
And also remember, Washington's wide receivers are very banged up at this point. So we're going to have more injury news on their wide receiving core. So because of that, they are going to have to rely more on AP. And with no Chris Thompson, I love it for him today.
Yeah, I think absolutely Peterson is the right play in this situation. From Giuseppe on Facebook, who do I start in flex PPR between Tyler Boyd, Allen Robinson, or Matt Breida? So another Matt Breida question coming in. To me, this is a no-brainer, Fensty. The answer is Tyler Boyd in a dream scenario Sunday night against the Chiefs. I do think Breida will get himself involved if he is active today. And Allen Robinson, we're not sure whether or not he's going to play at this point. And, as somebody that could really benefit from his absence is Taylor Gabriel, who's had back-to-back 100-yard weeks over the last couple of weeks. But to me, out of all these three, the clear-cut answer here is Tyler Boyd.
He's just getting targeted so much. I mean, you saw it again last week with him, too. So I'm still thinking that Tyler Boyd, even with A.J. Green there, Tyler Boyd is still – it's been unbelievable seeing what he's done. I mean, a lot of people were on John Ross going into the season. Remember that? This is only a couple of months ago. Now Tyler Boyd has just taken over and getting targeted a lot. Can he get in the end zone? He could probably do it twice in this matchup.
No doubt.
I do love Tyler Boyd. And I get what you're saying with Matt Breida. And even banged up, we saw what he could do. Even with the injuries last week, it was surprising. He was doubtful for a while, Ben. And then he came in and he made a bit of an impact.
He did.
It's still Tyler Boyd for me.
Were you in a situation where you had Alfred Morris anywhere and you're just trying to figure out what to do? Because that triggered a lot of dudes, man. It
did. No, and the thing is with Alfred Morris, I do not have him, but I do have Matt Breida in a lot of places. And because I wanted to play it safe and because he had that doubtful tag for a while, I benched him in all my leagues.
Yeah. That's perfectly fair. I think there were some people that just said, all right, I can rely on Alfred Morris to get me like 2 points because that's all I need. And by the way, if you didn't see the Matthew Berry on Full Tilt video, that was really good. That was epic. It's nice to sometimes see, the big time fantasy analysts just lose their collective shit because we've all been there. So it was a very relatable video from Matt Berry. I highly recommend it.
But they need to do it more because these guys, I mean, I want to start from these top analysts. I want to start seeing standings. I want to start seeing them go through issues, posting their rosters and being like, I'm dealing with 5 injuries on my team. Here's what I'm going to do. I feel like some of the top analysts need to do more of that, and that's great that we saw a humbling moment from Matthew Berry for a minute, but we don't see enough of those from Matthew Berry. If he's going to be the top guy, I want to see standings. I want to see times of struggles because as a fantasy player, that's how we relate to all of you out there.
Yeah.
Because we're going through this stuff too. And Matthew Berry, who's probably in a lot of leagues, has a few, let's say, 2-5 teams or 2-4 teams right now.
Correct.
So because of that, I want to see more of that from Matthew Berry.
Or, we could just beat him at his own game.
That's true. We do. I have Dalvin Cook starting in a lineup today. I thought I took him out, right? Joke's on me.
You're wearing your purple People Eater shirt.
No, it's a Purple Parrots from Legends of the Hidden Temple. Remember that show on Nickelodeon?
Yes. The fact that you...
I was a Purple Parrots guy. The Silver Snakes are the chalk play. They won every single time they crossed the moat, and they got the steps of knowledge. The Purple Parrots, the underrated Purple Parrots, get my love, Benny Heis. Which team did you like the best?
I didn't watch the show.
Okay, we'll just say you're a Red Jaguars guy then.
All right, let's go Red Jaguars. Play Carlos Hyde. There you go. From Andres, and by the way, a lot of questions coming in. I see you, Justin. I see you, Roll Dossie on Periscope. A couple more coming in from Arturo on Facebook, Justin on Facebook, and Jose. We will get to all you guys. Look, I feel like Casey Stern. We got Mike, and we got Jim, and we got Bob. All of you are gonna
John, Rob, we'll get to all of you.
Yeah, that's my guy. It's our guy, Casey Stern.
Yes, he is.
From Andres, do you go with Lamar Miller or Marlon Mack in Standard? All right, so we just talked about Marlon Mack a couple minutes ago, as if you're going to play someone in Standard, he seems to make sense. I don't know what the Houston running situation is at this point, and
it's
Lamar has been underwhelming.
It's awful.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, underwhelming. You're being very nice to Lamar Miller. Underwhelming. This guy should be getting, you're talking volume of touches?
Yeah.
Like Nick Chubb, we're all excited about Nick Chubb here. We should be excited about Lamar Miller every single week. His backups have been banged up, especially Donta Foreman all year. I don't know why they're not utilizing him more.
I don't know either. It hasn't made a whole lot of sense, considering, like, at some point, they're going to kill Deshaun Watson.
Yes.
Right? Like at some point, my man's going to end up dead on the field, and I don't want that. I love Deshaun Watson. I want to see him thrive. But with how bad their offensive line has been, with their inability to run the ball, they're like, all right, Watson, we want you to do a sweep right and run directly into a linebacker and try and get up. Like, he was playing through, like, bruised ribs and, like, cracked cartilage, and I'm no doctor, but I knew that I felt the pain every time I saw him.
This is the reaction of Lamar Miller owners every single week when it comes to, oh, do I start this guy? That's the reaction. Please tweet us. Let us know how you react, because that's my reaction every single week when it comes to trying to figure out whether or not to start this guy.
No, we're just gonna get a bunch of gifs of the guy from The New Girl, just like doing the dry heave.
Yeah, it's scary. It's a scary situation.
Yeah.
Oh, Ben, are you okay?
Yeah. No, I was thinking about starting Lamar Miller.
Okay, okay, just feel better.
Okay, yeah, hold on.
We may have to take a break for you to get water. Okay, so Benny Heis is getting water. So all of you out there, we feel your pain regarding Lamar Miller. It's tough to start. He should be getting volume of touches. He's not. And Watson is doing, like Ben said, way too much. I mean, when I'm seeing their receivers constantly on the injury report, not this week for Will Fuller, shocker, first time all year, he's not questionable going into a week. They should be using this guy more.
Yeah, no doubt about it. From Justin on Periscope, still starting Pat Mahomes and Tyreek Hill together. Should I start Sony Michel in the flex? He says he's kind of hurt, or should I start Nick Chubb? They're all coming in like these different wavelengths. I can only put one question on the screen at a time. So it sounds like, okay, Mahomes and Hill, absolutely, definitely in play. They're in play each and every week. Tyreek Hill, I believe, is the number 3 top scoring wide receiver in PPR, and he's not really a volume-based guy, so that's how good Tyreek Hill has been this year. So it sounds like the question is Sony Michel or Nick Chubb. He also asked whether or not he likes the Colts defense today. They're in a good spot, especially with Derek Anderson starting. I think this is a big day for LaShawn McCoy. It's going to be another underutilized guy, especially on fantasy sports markets. But would you go Sony Michel or would you go Nick Chubb?
I really do like Sony Michel in this matchup, even against the Bears. I still like him, Ben. Something tells me that it's him over Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb might get the Bears. It's just his spidey sense, exactly. Because, you know what, with the Bears, and I know Khalil Mack's a little bit banged up, and it's different when he's 100% healthy. It's just, he's been so productive lately, Ben. And with the amount that they're using him, it's hard to just not start Sony Michel right now.
Yeah, I think Michel is even the better play over Nick Chubb.
Because like we're saying, and we're going with this theory, Ben, and sorry to cut you off for a second. I mean, Nick Chubb, we know he's getting the volume of carries, but how much are they going to use Duke Johnson? That's a big question, Ben. it seems like you and I are starting to uncover this a little bit more when it comes to using Duke Johnson as a short dump-off passing game. That does take away from Nick Chubb.
Yeah, I feel like the old Jewish guy in Coming to America after this realization. Aha! You're going to play the Duke, aha!
Rocky Marciano.
Rocky Marciano. God, no, don't make me start going on that bit. By the way, funny...
You do the best impressions, though. I will say that.
You're a good... Well, I mean, listen, there's... At some point on the show... At some point on the show, Fensty is going to go full-on Jack Nicholson from The Departed. Like, I don't force it. Like, I want this just to come natural. When you... Like, maybe we're talking about, like, Brady or something. It needs to be something, like, Boston-related. And then I just want you to feel it. It's like Gilbert Gottfried. Like, you need the right moment to just yell and scream. So occasionally those will come out. Did I ever tell you that I got to do my impression of Morris, the old Jewish guy, for Arsenio Hall on the radio?
Yes, I heard the clip, and he loved it.
That was awesome. That was a cool moment for me.
He wanted to sign you to 3 movies, but your agent was being too stingy with the salary negotiations, and now here you are, you and I, on a live stream.
Time is money, bro.
It is. It is.
All right, let's go back to. Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't get a question from Andres yet. Let's go ahead and add that to the broadcast here. From Andres on Facebook Live, do we go with Taylor Gabriel or Josh Gordon at flex in a standard league? This is tough because first of all, they're playing each other, and I think you're sort of like that toss-up inter-game. I would go Taylor Gabriel as long as Allen Robinson is out. But it's looking
like he's going to play, Ben.
So, okay, but they won't have to announce it officially for another 45 minutes, right? At least at the time of this now. If he plays, I'm going Josh Gordon. If A-Rob is out, I think I got to go Taylor Gabriel here.
I'm fine with that, especially with the targets that we've seen him getting. I mean, and the amount of yards, more the yardage than the targets for him. So he's always around there. But if Allen Robinson is playing, I don't like him as much.
Yeah. One more from Arturo. I won't put it on the screen. We can go through real quickly. Half-point PPR, O.J. Howard or Corey Clement today?
I mean, I think because of the situation, I mean, you don't know how involved Brake's going to be. So I believe you got to go with Corey Clement there. I'm still thinking he's going to be very active in that passing game. I know Smallwood is there. I know with Sproles being banged up, it helps Clement. I'm still going Clement there, Ben.
Okay. From Justin on Facebook Live. Says, what's up, boys? I'm stacking Mahomes and Hill today. Again, over Breeze and Brady. What do you guys think? Also, Michelle hurt, but playing today in the flex over Chubb and Murray. Also, defense. Okay. So it's basically, would you play Mahomes over Breeze and Brady today? It sounds like for a season-long league. And I have no problem with that. Mahomes at home. He's been the most consistent fantasy quarterback. Breeze and Brady are studs too, but they have tougher matchups. I think the question is whether or not you just think Drew Brees is going to have to throw a ton and whether or not that adds up over Mahomes. But I know Mahomes is going to have to throw all the time, each and every week, because of how bad their defense is. So I'm perfectly fine with him going Mahomes over Breeze and Tom Brady. And I'm perfectly fine with him going Sony Michel over Nick Chubb and Latavius Murray as well.
Fine with that as well. I mean, again, like we talked about, I mean, Sony Michel, banged up or not, he's been getting very involved. And, you know, I think one of the things, Ben, that we could talk about is how many points we think the Patriots will score today, because we think, even though in this matchup against Chicago, you and I seem to think that they're going to be scoring a lot, whether it's in the air or on the ground. We've touted Josh Gordon today. And, again, this is why it's good to review this stuff, because we're getting all your questions. You can get your question answered through other questions because of the discussion here for all of you out there. So because of that, I mean, we've been talking about Josh Gordon, thinking that at least he's going to get a big play today, putting him over a lot of wide receiver twos at this point. We've been talking about Sony Michel. We're saying we're going to start him over Latavius Murray. We're going to start him over Nick Chubb. I mean, that right there shows that we're both thinking that the Patriots are scoring a lot of points against Chicago today.
Question coming in on Facebook Live, a quarterback toss-up from Jose. Do you go with Andrew Luck or Joe Flacco today? Luck is at home against Buffalo. Joe Flacco at home in the late afternoon game against the Saints.
Wow. This is a very, very tough one. The conservative play is not going Joe Flacco, but it seems like a lot of analysts, Ben, that I've been hearing, especially on my channel, Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, which I work on, are saying that Willie Snead is going to have a big game as well today.
I've heard that too. I don't know if I love Willie Snead as much as everybody else. I think he's going to be chalky today. The guy that I would probably feel better about is John Brown, to be honest.
Right. So another guy as well, obviously, that's been good for you all season, Michael Crabtree. Mike Crabtree, another one that's just not getting talked about enough. Here's why I'm going Andrew Luck. I just think something we mentioned earlier, Ben, the amount that this guy is throwing, it's like he's going to keep throwing a ton as well. I think there has a higher ceiling because of that. I think because he's going to be throwing more, we can expect that we talked about before. I think Luck actually has the higher ceiling here.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly fine. It's just a question of whether or not you believe New Orleans and Baltimore is going to turn into a shootout. There are some weather concerns. There's some little bit of swirling winds, not massive, but about 10 to 15 miles per hour. And Luck is going to be able to play in the dome. I don't know, man. I think you can exploit New Orleans through the air, but I think also Flacco has a tendency to turn the ball over. And depending on your league, that could really hurt you, especially at the quarterback position. Now, if it's in daily where it's like -1, -2, it's not the end of the world. So I think Luck is probably the safer play. As far as upside, though, I just think New Orleans is always going to put up points. I sort of look at Breeze and Michael Thomas as sort of the ultimate contrarian stack today because everyone's going to see how good Baltimore's defense has been, and they're not going to want to play him. They're going to move Michael Thomas into the slot up for a bunch of this game. And I think about that Week 2 game that Baltimore had when A.J. Green scored like 4 touchdowns on them. All those came in the slot. So you can exploit them there. So I think Flacco will have to throw a bunch today, but I know that Andrew Luck is going to throw. It's the question of if Flacco's going to have to throw, but we know Andrew Luck is going to have to throw. It's a question of if versus have, so I would say Luck.
Right. I will say this, though. I've been looking at the defenses over the last few games, and it does seem like the favorite here would be based off the last 4 weeks. So let's just say, we're looking at the recent matchups for consistency. The Saints defense has been worse to receivers than the Buffalo Bills. Yeah. That's the one thing that's stopping me from going all in on Andrew Luck. Now, I'm still going in on Andrew Luck here. It's now a 60-40 split for me with Andrew Luck being on top. But seeing that doesn't make me go fully lock it in 95, 100% there. And that's why it's such a tough decision. I'm still riding with Luck here. But if I'm looking at the last few weeks of statistics, it seems that the Saints are more vulnerable than the Buffalo Bills.
That's pretty remarkable when you think about it too, right? Considering how good they were last year.
Right.
Yeah. I think you're spot on with that. Let's go through a couple rapid fires from a couple of questions that we've gotten already, or from people that have already asked their questions. So, again, a couple more from Giuseppe on Facebook. George Kittle or O.J. Howard in PPR? I think as long as Kittle plays, he's the guy, right?
Yes, he is. And, again, because we have that split there and Cameron Brate will still be involved, as we've seen, let's go with George Kittle.
Also, Kirk Cousins today on the road against the Jets, or Jameis Winston at home against Cleveland. Winston, to me, continues to be the smart play just of how often he's going to be throwing the ball. Cousins, I think, can still have a good game. You can throw on the Jets, but I think I'd rather go Winston here.
It's safer play here. This is a lot easier than some of the other ones we've received. I like Kirk Cousins' matchup against the Jets. I think that it's going to be a pretty high-scoring game. However, I'm still going with Winston there.
All right, let's take a question from Sam on Facebook Live. He says, I need 2.5 PPR, John Brown, Sterling Shepard, Marvin Jones, or Nelson Aguilar. Thanks again.
Wow.
So let's do we play the who do we eliminate first, or the guy that we want to start for sure first?
I mean, I think John Brown's got to be in there.
I do too.
Right, from what we just talked about. I mean, the problem is with Sterling Shepard, it's so frustrating, the Giants' offense.
Yeah.
It really is. And
they're going to play better this week, though.
Right.
It's Atlanta.
Yes, they are. You want to put Shepard in there, let's put Shepard in there as well. I mean, the other options are, once again, I know
Marvin Jones and Nelson Aguilar. Like, what?
You know what?
What have they done? Well, let's talk about Aguilar first. Like, yeah, the targets are still fairly there, but once Jeffrey came back to the lineup, that really crushed his production. Right. Nelson Aguilar, for the most part, is now available in a lot of fantasy leagues, and this was somebody that got off to a great start at the beginning of the season. So I'm probably putting Aguilar on the bench.
Right.
And then it's a question of whether or not you think Marvin Jones against Miami can be the big play guy, and whether or not Xavier Howard is going to be shadowing him versus Kenny Golladay. Marvin Jones has been treated, interestingly enough, Fensty, as the #1 outside wide receiver by most defenses this year. I
Right.
don't know whether that's going to change with the emergence of Galladay.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. So you're very in on Kerryon Johnson.
I am.
So taking what we talked about and connecting it before, being that you're that in on Kerryon Johnson, and you do think he's going to be active in the receiving game too, right?
I do.
Okay.
It's just a question of whether or not you think Marvin Jones has an opportunity to break one deep if Xavier
Right.
Howard isn't on him. So
Right.
I would say I think it's Brown and Shepard.
Yes, I agree with that.
Especially with how bad Atlanta's defense has been, knowing that the Falcons are going to put up points. Shepard's going to be involved in the passing game. I think you got to include him here.
Yep, I agree with that. As painful as it's been, it's, again, something that Ben mentioned before. It's Atlanta.
Yes.
That's one of the teams that you always attack.
Yeah, I think so too. One more coming in from Jose on Facebook Live. Allen Robinson, Tariq Cohen, or Latavius Murray in the flex for a full point. Looks like it's full point PPR. Man, so Robinson, again, looks like he's going to play for Chicago this morning.
Yep.
Murray, we know, is the guaranteed starter in Minnesota, but he's not really a PPR threat.
Right.
Cohen is, but there's a lot of reports that the weather right now, I saw the tweet from Diana Rossini over with ESPN saying that it is super cold right now in Chicago. And I almost wonder whether or not that means Chicago tries to give it to Jordan Howard a little bit more than we've seen over the last couple weeks. So this is a tougher one. And I feel like the safest play out of all these guys, even in a PPR, is still Murray. Because I know he's going to get the opportunities in the red zone. They can still dump it off to him against the Jets. He can catch passes, but that's not necessarily his strong suit.
Right.
And Tariq Cohen, obviously, he's been the better PPR player. Do you go with him because you expect the Bears to be trailing against the Patriots and they're going to have to use him in the passing game?
I'm kind of thinking that as well. As much as, if you're a more conservative fantasy player, you're going to have to go with Latavius Murray in this situation. If you're going Allen Robinson versus Tariq Cohen, I mean, health plays a big factor. Go Tariq Cohen in that regard. Mm-hmm. So that I'm almost fine with in that respect. Eliminating, if it was a 2 or 3, Allen Robinson would be out. Now, if you have Tariq Cohen in that matchup against Latavius Murray, the problem is with Dalvin Cook out, we've seen now what Latavius Murray could do.
Right.
And even with Tariq Cohen still being active in the passing game, because, yes, I do think the Bears are going to be behind the Patriots and are going to have to throw. So I'm still probably going to have to go with Tariq Cohen at least one more week here. Yeah. Unless I see Jordan Howard very much back in the mix. Then we're talking moving forward, not trusting Tariq Cohen as much.
I think the safer play, I think we're in agreement here. The safer play is Murray, just because the volume is going to be there. If you want the upside play, it's always it's Tariq Cohen here, based on the speed, based on the burst, based on the fact that they're going to need him in the passing game to keep up with New England, even without Rob Gronkowski today.
Right.
So good question, Jose. From Noah on Facebook Live, do we go with Corey Clement or Latavius Murray in a standard league?
In a standard league, wow. PPR, you could lock in Clement right there.
Yeah, I think it's Murray.
Yeah, I think because it's a standard league, it's Murray. You're looking for that touchdown.
Yeah. Still some time for your questions. Had a little bit of a break in the action. Also another good opportunity to remind you guys of what's happening at Fantasy Sports Markets today. We got the promo code right up on the screen. If you have not registered with Fantasy Sports Markets yet, what we are is a non-salary-based daily fantasy site. So you can choose the players that you want to play. You don't have to worry about who you're going to be able to fit in your salary cap. And we don't just have NFL. We have top 25 college football. We will have college basketball in a couple weeks. So get your college basketball fix. Of course, NBA action. There's no better NBA analyst than my guy Fensty over here. He joined us at the beginning of the season, broke down the early slate. We talked about being all over Ben Simmons, and sure enough, that was the clear-cut play.
It's always the clear-cut play.
Yeah, he's going to be a monster this year.
Yeah, I mean, you're honestly, if you're not honest guy, I know it's expensive, but again, that's why Fantasy Sports Markets is so cool, because you're getting that 5-tool player for $0.
That's right. So he's always a lock for you guys, and there were still a couple intriguing options that you guys could throw in there as well. Big day for Jimmy Butler on Friday. I was played him in a lineup in the Beat Benny Heis competition as well. There's a couple times each week that you guys get a chance to go up against me. You can also do that today over at Fantasy Sports Markets. That's one of the contests that there's still only a few spots left. It's just $1. If your lineup beats my lineup, you double your entry fee, with first place getting $10. So yeah, sometimes there's a lot of winners, Fensty. When I have a bad week, And other times, I think last week I finished in third out of 25. But I've had a week where I finished like in 16th. So,
right.
There's a lot of times where you can capitalize on that for just $1 to double up. So certainly encourage you guys to go to fantasysportsmarkets.com. Give us a try. Promo code NFL18 for $5 with no deposit required. Go in, get in on the action for today. We have NHL contests as well, too, if you guys want to get in on a little hockey action. So again, continue to get your questions in. We've gone through a ton of them so far today.
You think, Ben, it's time to go over essentially the ultimate lineup and all of that for today from Fantasy Sports Markets?
I think that's I think that's a golden opportunity to go ahead and do so. Let's start at the quarterback spot, where, it's been sort of an intriguing toss-up. We talked a lot about Jameis Winston today. We also mentioned Andrew Luck with his ability to throw constantly. Kirk Cousins has been in the conversation as well. On the salary sites, I think the clear-cut play is to save at quarterback with C.J. Beathard. No need to play C.J. Beathard this week, even though I think San Francisco's going to have to throw a ton. But who are the couple quarterbacks that you really like for this week?
Non-salary Patrick Mahomes. Again, we were talking about it all the time. Good matchup there. You had mentioned Kirk Cousins. Don't forget about Matt Ryan either. Mm-hmm. I feel like every week, you're seeing the consistency from him, and the Giants don't scare me. Out of all the matchups that Matt Ryan has faced, this is not the weakest team by any stretch, but still it's someone that you're going to have to look out for, especially with the receivers looking like they're healthy. Then you're going to have to look out for Matt Ryan.
Yeah,
today.
if you're making a couple different lineups this week on Fantasy Sports Markets, you're going to want to have one that basically is a Kansas City-Cincinnati stack. Get that Sunday night hammer. Have a lineup with Mahomes. Have a lineup with Andy Dalton, and then run it back with somebody on the other team. So I think a really good, intriguing game stack lineup there is you have Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce. Run it back with A.J. Green, or run it back with Tyler Boyd. You can use those guys in a stack. Also, Mixon is very much in play as well. Just load up. Load up on a Sunday night stack if you want, and feel good about that for you guys as well. At the running back spot, Todd Gurley, he's so that free space on the board. There's still some people that are a little bit concerned about Alvin Kamara. Don't be. Here's the real question, Fensty. This is a good toss-up for you. If you could only start Todd Gurley or Saquon Barkley this week, who would you go with?
Saquon Barkley.
Which is crazy because of how good Todd Gurley's been this year, right?
Yeah, but look at how good Saquon Barkley's been too, Ben. Look at how good that Saquon Barkley's been, especially in the passing game. Saquon Barkley is going to eat up Atlanta today.
Mm-hmm. Tomorrow night. Yeah,
yes,
I think I would go that same direction, which is remarkable considering that Todd Gurley is like. Here's the thing: Fantasy Sports Markets this week. This is not a week to try and get cute at running back. Okay, lock in Gurley, lock in Barkley. Find your value elsewhere. Right. I don't think there's any question here. If you're playing a Sunday-Monday slate at FSM, those are the guys that you have in your lineup, and don't think twice about it, right?
Right.
If we're looking for a couple value plays, I certainly think Joe Mixon, Kareem Hunt are in play in the Sunday night game. We talked about Kerryon Johnson, a guy that I'm pretty big on this week. And I still like, in tournaments, Duke Johnson over Nick Chubb.
Okay.
So what about you? Are there any other guys that you feel like you mentioned Christian McCaffrey's another guy you really like
I mentioned Christian McCaffrey. I still like his matchup today. Ben doesn't seem to think that he'll be active on the rushing area, but in the receiving area is where I'm thinking, just like Ben does as well, will produce there. But also something we talked about as well, Sony Michel. Mm-hmm. When he's playing, we're both still all in on him, it seems like, with some of the questions we've received. Sony Michel versus Latavius Murray, we're still going Sony Michel. Sony Michel versus Nick Chubb in a lot of situations. We're going Sony Michel. So that's someone that you're going to have to consider as well for value.
Really quickly, this can also be applicable to season-long leagues. Are you feeling better about Tevin Coleman the rest of the season now that Devontae Freeman is done for the year? Do you feel like they're going to give him the necessary opportunities to be a back-end running back one, or do you think Ito Smith's going to eat into it?
I think Ito Smith's going to eat into it. I really do. It is a shame. It is. This is his opportunity, and now with Ito Smith, I'm seeing people. You're seeing multiple people pick him up for over $60, spend their fab on him. Then it's one thing. He's going to be involved. They're getting this guy involved.
Yeah, I think they're getting him involved, especially in the goal line.
Right.
And I just don't know how good he is at catching the ball. Coleman is so good in space.
Right.
But I think the other reason that you picked up Ito Smith too is Coleman has an injury history, right? And so at some point, Ito might have a day where he's like the only running back there in an elite level offense. So even if he becomes a stash for you guys, fantasy playoffs, he could be unbelievable. And I know they mentioned Devontae Freeman could be coming back late in the season, but I have to see it to believe it.
It would be week 16. So unless your team is, you can see into the future and your team is already into the championship, then you're not going to use this guy.
Wide receivers this week, obviously, Julio once again in play against the Giants. If you're looking at the Monday night slate, Odell Beckham running back with him. I was talking to Elliot Christ on the podcast, and he said if you're building a Sunday lineup and Adam Thielen isn't in it, start over. He's been that good. He's been that consistent every week with 100-plus yards in the receiving game. And a guy that I love this week, too, especially with no Cooper Kupp because they're going to move him into the slot. Against San Francisco, Robert Woods is going to eat today, Fensty.
Agreed with both of those, Ben. We're on the same page. Thielen's got an amazing matchup against the Jets. Again, I'm thinking this is going to be very high scoring, and now it's starting to make me wonder whether or not we're steering people the wrong way if we say start Jameis over Kirk Cousins. I'm still there because of that matchup, but as we've gone on in the show, Ben, I'm less and less confident in Jameis over Kirk.
Interesting. I just think that we know the yardage is going to be there,
right?
And I don't have to worry. Who are you more worried about getting touchdowns and opportunities today, Latavius Murray or Peyton Barber?
I'd still say Peyton Barber there,
as far as not having to worry about it.
Right.
I feel Murray's the better play of those two guys, so that's why I feel better about Winston over Cousins.
Okay, I get what you're saying, man.
All right, tight end spot, I think the two clear-cut plays for Sunday is Kelsey and Zach Ertz. We also mentioned George Kittle's in play. Eric Ebron, you like him to get back into the end zone this week.
I do.
And I think David Njoku, if we're talking about really good plays this week, Tampa Bay Buccaneers' pass defense is already atrocious, but they're worst in the league at stopping the tight ends. And Njoku's targets since Baker Mayfield has taken over has been unbelievable. He's going to get in the end zone this week. I feel very strongly about that.
I'm with you, Ben. I'm with you. We haven't even discussed him, but these Browns, we're going to put them in our lineups today, so spread them out all over the place. I like Callaway as well. I'm thinking Callaway's going to put up double digits in fantasy production. Whether or not he scores in the end zone remains to be seen. I'm still thinking because of the targets we've seen that Antonio Callaway is going to get at least 8 targets today, and I'm thinking that he'll hit those double-figure marks in fantasy and PPR.
And there you go. It's another show, guys. Another full hour in the books for Week 7. Fensty, before we go, where can people find your work? Where can people hear you on the radio?
On Twitter, at Fensty Sports, and you can hear me every single Saturday, Wake Up Fantasy Sports, 6 to 8 a.m. Eastern on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio Series 210, XM87, also on demand with the SiriusXM app. And for all those hoops players out there, where you at? Come at me. Big fight last night. A lot of suspensions coming up heading into the week. It looks like we could be seeing 3 between that Lakers-Rockets game. So fantasyalarm.com as well. Videos, articles, rankings, waivers, and, of course, injury reports that you could get.
And, of course, if we didn't answer your question, we apologize, but you can always hit us up. Our Twitter handles are right here on the screen. I am at Benny Heis. He is at Fensty Sports. And, again, fantasy sports markets, guys, you got a couple hours left to get in those lineups. Promo code NFL18 will get you $5 on us. It is non-salary DFS. It's never been easier. It's never been more fun. And there is hundreds of thousands of dollars up for grabs in roster bonuses as well. For Fensty, I'm Heis. Thank you guys for watching. We will be back next Sunday. Is next Sunday the different time, Fensty? Or is that 2 weeks from now?
I believe it is, Mr. Heisler.
All right, so a little bit of an important announcement for those of you guys that are watching. We will be on an hour earlier.
Nope, 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Complete
I just checked the date.
Okay. And I will be recovering from a Halloween party. I'm going to be dressed as Andy Reid. I might just show up. I might just show up to the show as Andy Reid.
Should we wear costumes next week?
Maybe we'll put it up. We'll leave it up to Twitter to decide.
I'll wear cool sunglasses and be Johnny Cage from Mortal Kombat.
Thanks, you guys, for watching. Appreciate it as always. Good luck. Go win. We'll talk to you guys next week. Be good.